Hello, lightworkers, mystics, and witches, and welcome back to another episode of the Word Witch podcast. Today's episode is all about wealth, money, and spirituality. So stay tuned. Hi, my name is Domenica, and I'm an author, writing expert, and author coach. And this is the first podcast dedicated to teaching spiritual development entrepreneurs how to use and apply spirituality, mindset, manifestation, and energetics to writing books in their niche. By writing books in your field of expertise, you establish yourself as an authority in your field, and that alone attracts high-paying clients, gets your inbox flooded with speaking gig requests, and creates more freedom and abundance in your life. Welcome to the Word Witch podcast. Hello. So today's episode is one of my favorite topics, which is money. I love money. I know you love money. We all want more of it. And I got this sort of download after I listened to an episode from one of my mentors, and the topic was, or not the topic, but he posited a question, basically, that was, if the American dream is real and hard work will make you rich, then how come the people who work the hardest in our society, the restaurant workers, the roofers, the builders, and people who work in quarries, people who pick vegetables in fields, like people who are doing back-breaking labor, why aren't they millionaires if your work directly reflects monetary value? And this is a question that has plagued me forever, since I could work, since I was allowed to work, and I got my first job when I was like 15. Because to me, and I'm sure that you have heard this just being in the spiritual space, if you are here, then you probably know this adage very well, that money is just an exchange of energy, and your energy output does not really reflect in hours the value that you provide. So to kind of like put this in better context, take a full-time job. You deliver a service for your employer at an hourly rate, but the work that you did might output millions of dollars more than what they gave you for the work. So I'll just take my job, for example. I know, because I have access, and I know how much money the company that I work for makes from the labor that I provide. And it is extraordinarily more money than what they pay me to produce the work. And so I have a theory that because of a lot of different things, Pluto moving into Aquarius for one, and all of the civil unrest and upheaval that we've experienced just within the past 2 months since that happened, the class consciousness that's starting to form, I think we're going to move into a society where we decentralize certain services and products that we are used to purchasing from quote-unquote big box companies. And I think we're going to start to see more freelancers pop up. I think we're going to start to see more and more small businesses really hit the ground running and start to prosper in a way that is going to completely disrupt these big conglomerates, the Jeff Bezos of the world, the Elon Musks of the world. I think we're going to really start to see, and I think this is why they're trying so hard to stop the people from succeeding and taking things away, like TikTok, where people are making money that they've never seen before in their lives, and they're starting to change their lives. They're starting to break down like centuries and centuries of poverty in their families. They're breaking all of these generational curses because TikTok has given them a platform to create content and make money from it. And I think this scares them because they see that we won't need them anymore. We won't need to be their workers anymore. They need people to work for them in order to sustain their business models. And when the worker goes and does their own thing and they can make their own money, that threatens their business, right? So I had this download and I just wanted to share it with you because I had this sort of not revelation. I kind of like already knew this, but I thought it would be nice to share. And I hope it gives you a little bit of insight and maybe a little bit more of encouragement to go out there and do your own thing and pursue your own career and really take charge of your own life and to not be so reliant on being an employee of somebody else. So if you have a skill, if you have any type of skill, I don't know what to call it, if you make products, if you knit, if you make clay mugs, if you do whatever it is that you do, I really hope that this gives you a little bit of insight. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not a financial expert. This is not financial advice, and you should always consult an expert whenever you are changing something in your life that will directly disrupt or that will directly impact your finances. Okay, here it goes. Money is not the direct effect of hard work. Rather, the value of your work is the direct effect of your work translated into currency, aka money, which is just the physical representation of a fraction of gold, something humans have put enormous value on since they discovered it. The energy of gold holds such a high vibration now that we exchange energy for it. We exchange energy in the form of labor to get the raw materials to make the products that people then pay fractions of gold for, or the labor that it takes us to provide a service. And that was it. So let me put this in context again for you, and I'm just going to use my own work experience as an example. I create content for a company. That company then sells the content that I created to their audience. Much like what I do in, let's just say, the Woo Woo Writers Workshop. I sell my service to my consumers or my clients. I did all that work. All the work that Woo Woo Writers Workshop encompasses is my work. I also do a very similar thing for another company. I do all of the work along with a team of people who help me put it together. So I manage the project. I also write the content for it. So the work that I do is then posted on a platform and purchased by customers. The work that I do, the amount of hours I spend putting into that work is paid for by my salary. And because I'm in a salaried type of position, I know how much my content makes the company. My content has made the company more than my salary 10 times over. And that is why I'm here to prove to you that the amount of hours that you spend working for someone else does not directly reflect what the work you did is valued at. Does that make sense? So like, if you're being paid, let's just say $10 an hour to create something for a company who then goes and sells it for $20 a pop, and they sell 20,000 of those, that's what, $200,000 worth of value that that product made that company. And they exchanged it for $10 an hour, however many hours it took you to make that thing. And this is why I love freelancers and I love freelance work. And that's how I started WordWitch, was by freelancing. Basically, how I see it is money is the physical representation of the work that you provided. So let's just say you're somebody who formulates, like curates teas, and you make these herbal tea remedies and stuff to help people heal from certain things. The amount of time that it takes you to put together a bag of tea or a box of tea is not directly reflected in the value that that person or that consumer is willing to pay for that tea. So if it takes you an hour, let's just say, to put a bunch of tea bags together, right? Let's just say you sell them at 10 cents each. If it only took you an hour to do that, and and in that hour you can make, let's just say, 100 boxes of tea, then your value that you put on your tea, if you were to put that into an hourly wage, would be $10 per hour. So making 100 tea bags or tea boxes, or however you're going to sell it, at 10 cents per tea bag is going to get you $10 per hour if you're going to, value yourself at an hourly rate. If you wanted to make more than $10 an hour, you would have to figure out a way to make more tea bags or charge more money. And if the market dictates that they're willing to pay, let's say, 20 cents per tea bag, then you can value your work at $20 per hour. So hourly rate does not directly reflect the amount of effort and time, or not time, effort and expertise that you used to make that thing or to provide that service. I hope this is making sense. It's probably not. But so how does money then become spiritual? So the first thing, and I talked about this in a previous episode, was the principle of Aini. And Aini comes from the Peruvian area of the world. It's an indigenous concept. Basically, it's just the law of reciprocity, sort of a quid pro quo. I make something for you and you pay me for it, or vice versa. And I bring this up because so many people, I feel like, want something for nothing. They want a lot of value and not have to pay anything for it. But the amount of work that the creator puts into making something is not worth anything. If you gain 1% more value out of the thing that person provided for you, then its value, it has value, right? It directly reflects the value that you were willing to pay for it. So consumers dictate the value of a thing. So let's just put this into a different context. As a copy editor, my job is to provide a service to writers to copy edit their manuscripts and get it ready for them to sell. If I am charging, let's just say $2,500 for an an 80,000 word manuscript, people are only going to be willing to pay that if that is the, let's say, average of what copy editors are charging out there. If someone is charging, let's say, $1,500 for the same amount of words, that might directly reflect the amount of experience that person has, the amount of expertise, the amount of education. It might reflect a whole bunch of different things. In my experience, people who charge under what the average is for the market are typically less experienced, and it's because they're trying to get experience that they're charging less money. That will also dictate how much money you spend and how polished and how professional your manuscript ends up being. So if you're paying someone who is charging really low for their services, they might not be as experienced as someone who's charging the $2,500 for their expertise and their energy output. So you might end up getting the manuscript back and you're like, man, this is still really not up to par. This is not up to snuff. So I'm going to have to pay another editor to polish it even further. So now you're spending even more money to get the same value that a singular person could have given you had you just went with the person who was charging the average rate, or maybe even above the average rate. And I think we can all agree that we've seen how consumerism directly dictates the market. So what's it called? Supply and demand. So let's talk about really quickly. I don't want to get into pandemic stuff, but when we were all in a panic and trying to get all of these resources because we thought we were going to be locked down for months at a time, the price of paper products went through the roof because people were buying toilet paper and paper towels dozens at a time. So what did the people who own the stores do? They raised the price of those things because the value of that toilet paper or paper towels went up because the demand for it went up as well. So I'm just trying to use this as a way to explain why hourly wages do not reflect the value of the service or the value of the product. Even, because the product takes services along the way to then come into form. So let's just go back to the tea analogy. If you are selling tea, there was a person who grew that tea. There was the farm. Then there was the farm workers who picked the tea. And then there was the other workers who dried the tea. And then there was the people who packaged the tea. Then there was the people who shipped it. And then there's the mail people who delivered it. And then it got to your shop, and then you had to unbox it and make your formula. And then you had to package it again and get it ready for the consumer. And then the consumer purchases it. And so all of those little stages cost somebody something, right? The farm people had to pay for the water that it took to grow those tea leaves. They had to pay their workers. They had to pay the shipping costs, and et cetera, et cetera. So again, none of that has any reflection of hourly value, because the people who are working for the employer, the people who are working for the farm, they are given an hourly rate that is a tiny fraction of what the company is actually making from their labor. So their labor is basically, hold on. I'm having like an existential crisis right now. In real time. Okay, wait. The person who is doing the work for the employer is technically, however much it costs, or however much money a consumer is willing to pay the farm for the tea, technically the worker is paying the employer a certain chunk of their time and money to work for them. Okay, hold on. Let's just say your employer pays you $10 an hour and they sell that product that you made at $20 per pop. Let's just say the value of that thing is $20. You paid them $10 to work for them. I don't know if that makes sense, but in my brain it makes sense. Anyway, so this is why I love working with freelancers, because I get to pay them the value that they put on their work. And as a copy editor and proofreader, I personally never charged somebody per hour because, one, I'm dyslexic. So it actually takes me a little bit longer to go through somebody's manuscript because I read slow, which I think is actually a good thing because I'm taking my time with it. And I also go through the manuscript more than once. So if I were to charge somebody an hourly rate, it would cost them an extraordinarily high amount of money that nobody's going to be willing to pay, right? So I have to then look to the market and see what are people paying for the service that I'm providing, and then I have to think about how much experience do I have, how much education did I have, how much continuing education am I doing, how much am I how much knowledge do I have, like all of these different things about my value as a copy editor, my value as a person who works in this industry. And then I have to say, all right, I'm willing to do it at this price. And then I have to be willing to do it at that price and not resent my job, right? You have to, when you're freelancing, one of the biggest things I feel like is important is loving your job if you're a freelancer. Because if you don't love your job and you don't feel like you're getting the monetary value that you put out for your customer, you're going to end up resenting your customer. And it is not their fault, because that is what the market dictates. If somebody's willing to pay you $5,000 to edit their manuscript, that's great, but that work better be up to snuff. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, so all of this to say that your hourly value is not directly reflected in the output of energy that you receive or that you give out to receive the physical energy representation of money, of currency. Does that make sense? I don't know. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I don't know what else. So let's go back to making money, or how can money be spiritual? Because if you're here, you are a spiritual person, you're in the woo-woo, you are maybe somebody who teaches and reads people's human design charts. You might be an astrologer or a tarot reader. You might be a shaman or some sort of mystic. You might just be a professional witch. All of these things are, I think, given a certain stigma when you charge for your services. And when we became a society that was more independent than, let's say, our clans and our tribes, and when we were, farming our own land and roaming around with our people, and we weren't, just staying in one place. We weren't as independent. We weren't, I guess when we weren't farmers, when we had community, right? When we were reliant on each other for survival. And there were these societies that had people like druids and medicine people and shamans and people who were spiritually enlightened, who had a stronger connection to source. Those people were typically, not all the time, they weren't typically paid with currency, because at the time, currency wasn't really a thing. We were trading. We were just taking care of each other through providing their basic needs, their shelter, their food, their water. So those mystics, those medicine people, those shamans, those, you know what I'm trying to say, those people who were revered as the spiritualists of their society, who were teaching, who were bringing spiritual healing to their tribe, to their clan, they were taken care of by that community. They didn't have to charge. And nobody charged for anything back then. They just traded, or they just helped each other. They worked together. But now we live in a capitalist society where you do something for me, I give you something in return, and that's usually money. You might exchange services or whatever. But in our current society, in order to have those things that those other mystics and teachers and light workers were provided for from their tribes, from their clans, we now have to get those things on our own because we are independent. You could absolutely be a shaman who only works off of donations or only works off of the kindness of others, but not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody can survive that way. So in order for you to help other people heal, to provide them with your service, with your tarot readings, with your astrology chart readings, whatever service you are providing them that is a spiritual thing, should not be seen as predatory inherently, because you need money to survive. And with the job market being the way that it is now, with education being the way in America, being so freaking expensive, it's not accessible to everybody. But if you have a spiritual skill and you can provide that to someone else, you should be paid for your work. You should be paid for that. And I read a Reddit post last night that was, somebody had said something like, I'm so sick of, being an actual spiritualist or, whatever, like being actually connected to source and seeing all of these fake people out there who don't know what they're talking about. And the comments that were under it, some of them I'm happy that they said, you're in your ego. Like, the fact that you think that you have all the answers basically just means that you have not enlightened. You are not enlightened if you think that you have all the answers and that everyone else is wrong. The more I dive into my spirituality personally, the more I realize I know nothing. the more knowledge that I think I'm getting, the less I know. And for somebody out there, anybody out there who claims to have the answer, the truth, that they know because XYZ spirit guide told them, is just, what's the word? Perpetuating what religion has been perpetuating for thousands and thousands of years, right? All religions are based on the fact that some person had this revelation from God and they are all knowing now, and they wrote this tiny chapter in a book, and now that book has become canon, and all this from spiritual downloads, right? So what makes your spiritual download more important or more true than my spiritual download? We all are just here having individual experiences of source, and nobody, no human on this planet knows for sure. And if they are telling you that they know for sure, run the other way, because there is no way for us to fully understand until we cross over. Anyway, sorry, that was just a little rant, a little tangent that I had to go on. Anyway, so this person had said this, these people, they know nothing, and they're teaching about this subject, and they're wrong about it, and they're charging for it. And I thought, well, who are you to dictate or to have a judgment call on somebody who is trying to survive by providing a service that hopefully they are doing in earnest, and they think they are providing value to a person, as long as they're doing something that isn't harming anyone, that isn't causing a person trauma. If what they're doing is actually helping and it's actually providing spiritual healing, then who are you to tell them that they shouldn't be doing that? We live in a society where we need money to survive. That's plain and simple. And I believe that we were put here not only to just survive, but to thrive, to experience life at its fullest. And the only way for us to do that in this current reality is with currency, is with monetary currency. So all of that to say, I want you to make sure that you are grounded when you're teaching, that you are providing a service for people with integrity, with purity of heart, and that you are not making any what's the word? Any, like, oh my God, what is the word? It is completely escaping me right now. Any hard truths. The world is not black and white. Spirituality is not black and white. Money is spiritual, because if somebody needs spiritual healing in this current day and age, in this current society, with this current economic system, we need money to survive. And if I'm putting out energy to help somebody on any type of mental, physical, spiritual level, if I'm providing them a service, I'm putting out my energy with the principle of Aini, with the law of reciprocity. I deserve a monetary or an equal value to the service that I provide. Anyway, I hope that helped. I hope that wasn't too harsh. I hope that no one felt triggered by anything that I said. And if I did trigger you, I'm heartfully sorry. I really just want to live in a society, and I hope that we're moving in the direction of living in a society where we can all lift each other up, and we can all pay for each other's services and products and decentralize where we consume, where we get our goods, where we get our food, where we get all of these different things. I hope that we can move into a place that's more fair, that directly reflects the value that we are providing for each other. Yeah. Anyway, if you liked this episode, please share it with a friend. If you think I'm totally wrong or you want to have this conversation with me further, you can email me at hello@wordwitchcc.com. I encourage discourse when it comes to money. I encourage people to follow their dreams. And if following your dream means that you have to charge people money for your service, I want you to know your worth. And that's all I have for you today. So I will see you in the next episode. Bye! Wait, before you go, if you are a spiritual teacher, expert, or entrepreneur and you want to be a guest on the show, email me your pitch at hello@wordwitchcc.com, and I'd love to have you on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Come follow us on social media at our handle @wordwitchcc. That's Wordwitch, C for copy, C for consulting, and don't forget to hit subscribe to keep the magic flowing. See you in the next episode.